I was never much of a conspiracy theorist. I mean, I was in stuff like the Flat Earth movement, but that was only for the meme. I mean, obviously the government's engaged in very shady business, but they're not paving the way for aliens to invade the Earth or something. Those are just rich old men trying to get even richer. However, now I can somewhat understand how they feel. 2 days ago, the government broke the news. A huge asteroid was coming for the planet. I think it was like Texas-sized. It received plenty of names, but one that stuck out was Hades. Hades was going to destroy humanity, and we had no hope of changing that. It was too big to be destroyed, and at best, its debris would just strike the planet, shotgun style. My memory is hazy, but people refused to accept the news at first. A lot of them went on to live their lives and try to act as if nothing was going to happen. It took the end of the first day until people acted up, with riots flaring up over the world. I think they wanted to force the government to build spaceships or super bunkers, or they just wanted to loot stuff. I thought that the police wouldn't do anything to prevent it, since they had no real reason to at this point. But policemen did step forward over the globe. Though, they used guns to do so. A lot of policemen kind of went crazy and used live ammo on the rioters, when they weren't just beating them to death. The policemen were hardly the only ones to go crazy. A lot of people with guns, be it some random redneck or part of the army, decided to go ahead and gun down other people. Some just had urges to satisfy. Some wanted to deliver their fellow man of the pain of annihilation. We heard of them a little, but they were quickly overshadowed by all the nuclear wars. A lot of countries decided to settle the scores with their rifles. North Korea was the first. They used their nukes to attack South Korea and Japan. Then they were wiped out by China and the US. China was a little slower on the draw afterwards, but Russia got revenge for them by nuking the US. France and the UK then went at it against Russia, and everyone tore themselves apart. I only barely survived it all, but the radiations were getting to me. So I just spent the last day just kind of waiting. I was expecting some kind of cruel twist, like the asteroid missing or something. But it showed up on schedule. The sky lit ablaze, and I witnessed Hades descend into our world. The sheer sound of the impact shattered my eardrums, and my weakened body was effortlessly crumpled by the ensuing shockwave. I died. Then, I awakened, about 2 days earlier. For a moment, I thought it was a dying dream, but as time went on, I realized that it was in the past, more or less. However, Hades was not in the news. There was no mention of a big asteroid coming down to destroy us all, and life went on in a distinctly unapocalyptic manner. For a moment, I thought it was a loop of some kind, but at the end of the second day, nothing happened. Hades was a no-show, and people were confused when I tried to kind of bring it up. I mean, am I happy with the fact that we're all seemingly alive and well? Of course, I'm glad that we can live on. Our world's definitely not perfect, but it beat the utter nightmare that just happened. I could chalk up that whole Hades thing to a nightmare, but it felt so real. I want to move on and forget about it, but I still remember the sheer pain of the radiation, or the existential dread as I pondered about what would come after my inevitable death. Or just dying in general. Maybe it's the afterlife. Maybe it's a loop. Whatever it is, I just can't stop thinking about it, no matter how hard I try. Does anyone else remember Hades? Was anyone else ever stuck in a similar situation? If something bad happens again, will we get looped back? I'm afraid of digging in too deep and discovering something that no man was meant to discover. Hey, it's me. Back. So, in my first post, I mentioned Hades and the destruction it caused. I was glad to see some people apparently remembering it as well. Some also mentioned quantum immortality or other effects, so I looked it up, even asked in the comments. So, I was weirded out, but ready to move on. And then, it happened. There was a flying ship visiting the globe, at high speed. It was black and green, and its shape was... can't really describe it. It wasn't even remotely human-made, that's for sure. It was quite small too, but fast enough to evade the flying vehicles that went after it. It left a small green outline behind it. And at least its structure was rock-like, jagged and all. There were no windows or visible weaponry too. It left after a while, and the various space agencies came out and said that it was not from this world. And then the rest of the globe confirmed it. It was no viral marketing. It was not some kind of a new plane. It was extraterrestrial. People were split, but there was some joy to the discovery. We weren't alone anymore. Of course, some people advised cautiousness, but they were lost in the tides. I feel like a lot of people were actually nervous, but they tried to hide it. People were just glad to be able to witness such a game-changing event. 3 days later, another ship appeared. Way up above the planet, somewhere between it and the moon. It made itself known by blasting the numerous space debris around the Earth. It was larger than the first one. Much larger. Also, kind of rock-like, with jagged edges. As with the rest of the alien tech, it was quite hard to describe and compare it to Earthbound technology. At this point, people were starting to get worried by the sheer size of the vessel and the firepower and swiftness it demonstrated. They tried to communicate with it, but the ship was silent. In the meantime, people tried to give nicknames to the aliens, and one name stuck out. Hades. They were called Hades for some inexplicable reason. Barring the whole God of the Dead business, it brought back the memories of that damned asteroid, and I knew that something was going to happen to us. And it did. Starting with a message sent to the world leaders. Give everything, it said, with no capital or further demand. People were quite confused, of course, but I heard that the answer was as polite as could be and asked for clarification. So they made themselves more clear. And the ship promptly attacked the surface of the planet, deploying an astounding amount of lasers to do so. A lot of people think that aliens would fight us with easily dispatched soldiers, or use tactics that could be defeated by humans, or at least attempt to engage in standard warfare with us to give us a fighting chance. They didn't. They had a massive technological advantage, and they used it. The ship stood out of range of our own projectiles and attacked savagely, crippling the armies of the Earth before they could even mobilize and taking out a lot of humans. Entire cities were reduced to rubbles in the first salvo. They did bother to send robots afterwards, but those were more builders than anything. They walked across ruined landscapes and used holograms to build massive, bizarre structures akin to cities. They also built other structures, but I can't compare those to anything on Earth. You could easily see them from my spot, since they were so huge. The robots themselves were hardy. Sometimes, building rubbles collapsed on them, but they just walked through it. Absolutely nothing faced them. I don't know how, but they were terraforming the Earth. By the very end of it, they already managed to build new cities over the rubbles. Jet black towers stretched endlessly over the green horizon, towering over some of the strangest infrastructure I've ever seen. That was not a war. It was just a casual extermination. The Hades treated us as pests to be slaughtered, not as actual living beings. They never accepted any surrender, went out of their way to slaughter as many humans as they could, and did so terrifyingly fast. They didn't even bother to communicate with us anymore. They just squashed us underfoot. I think that some of those buildings were made to lure whatever humans remained, allowing nearby Hades workers to slaughter them, doing so with the use of some green light. I didn't stick around to personally die at their hands. After surviving the first wave, I witnessed the creation of those cities and the victory of the Hades, and I decided to end it all, thanks to a sharp debris nearby. I woke up on the same day the invasion occurred, but the giant one never showed up, and people carried on with their lives, knowing that they weren't alone. However, I couldn't shrug it off. It's hard to keep going to work or visit the social medias when you've witnessed humanity's end about twice. And this is the beginning too. Am I really immortal? Am I going to see such events effectively forever? Why is the name Hades associated with the end of humanity? And it doesn't help that someone's been turning up at work. And they're weird. Might just be my paranoia flaring out, so I'm going to avoid details for now. Maybe we could organize. Do you guys remember the Hades invasion this time? Or the memories of the asteroid still present too? So, about that weird person. Well, first off, they keep changing. Like, in my memories, they keep changing race and gender. One time, they're a white man, then a Latino woman, then a Japanese man, and so forth. And not just in my memory. When I look away for a second, they've changed appearance. No one has noticed that, of course. Anyhow, I approached the person and tried to play it off as if I didn't notice her weird changes. She played along, initially, but then told me to meet her for lunch at a cafe once we got out of the earsight of my colleagues. I followed her. We settled down at the cafe, and I didn't bother to start with formalities. I wanted answers, not only for me, but for the other people of my timeline. Who are you? You can call me Moira, she replied. I assume that you're looking for answers, huh? Yeah, I replied. So what's with the time loop? Not a loop, it's a reset. You can turn back time? Pretty much. Time, in all its shapes, belong to my species. Your species? Can't tell. Alright. So, you saved us all by resetting time, right? That is what we do. We observe events across the timelines. If something utterly catastrophic happens to a planet or its people before their time, we reset. What do you mean? You humans will die. Eventually. I can't tell how or when. But all of humanity will be thoroughly wiped out one day. Our goal is to make sure that it happens on schedule. And for that, we reset whenever something wipes you out beforehand. I leaned back in horror a little, but she shook her head. No, we won't do it. It's something that will happen naturally. Define naturally, please. Your son going rogue, for an instance. I guess that things related with Hades are not natural. But what is Hades though? Why is the name associated with catastrophic events? Is there a link to a god? Can't tell. What are you willing to tell then? Humans are small. I know how your culture works. You always imagine yourselves succeeding at reaching great heights within the universe. You always have one characteristic unavailable to the other races of the universe. The truth is, however, that in the vast scheme of the universe, you will always be less than a grain of sand. I wish I could have come up with an inspiring answer, but I just kind of froze, with my mouth open. Of course, you're hardly alone in that regards. We protect a lot of species across the universe. None of them will matter in the grander scale of existence. But for the sake of the timelines, we protect them. If you can reset time, why aren't you helping us when something bad happens? Like a war, or we're not babysitters. We protect you against things that surpass your understanding of the universe, or things beyond your control. But we won't fix your mistakes. She looked at the side for a moment, leaning her head on the palm of her right hand. You know, you might just end up wiped out because of pollution in the future. And that's not something that will change. Yeah, anyhow, what about my memories? The timeline can lag and leave you with memories of the reset. You and a few others remember Hades to descend into your world. This will change at the next reset tomorrow. She took a small pause and leaned back on her seat. There are two alien empires at war. One of their warheads is going to veer off course and end up in your solar system. The resulting detonation is going to take out your planet. And will reset correctly. You'll forget everything you've ever learned, and you'll live on a blissful life, unaware of the grander scope of the universe. I made a whiny little sound. Probably not the most dignified answer. But who could respond bravely to such a reveal? In the end, the universe is cruel, and we're not the only species with the power to impact reality. You humans prone truth over the illusion of a good life. But it is better to live and die in sweet arrogance, don't you think? You really don't want to know what lurk beyond the veil of space. Yeah, I muttered in answer. So I guess that those locks of mine will be remembered as silly stories. A group of humans will read them, hopefully enjoy them, and then they will be forgotten, along with your other stories. Alright, I said. So why not reset now? Why would you wait for us to die? For the records, she replied, getting up. We observed the numerous ends of species. She stopped for a moment and smiled. Hey, said Moira, with some new edge to her voice. Do you want to know just how much you end up wiped out on average? Yeah, I said, knowing that I'll forget about it by the next day. She whispered it in my ear and left. I remember quietly leaving a note behind as well, before leaving. I won't share what she told me, but I'm going to end this series. Tomorrow, we'll all die, and time will reset, and I'll forget everything. Those locks will just be stories, and the nightmares will stop. I'll go back to living a good life. I'm going to carry out my normal life anyway, until tomorrow. I'm going to do what those people did on the first day of the meteor, and live in ignorance of the inevitable end. I know better than to spend a life worrying. Because, after all, I was never much of a conspiracy theorist.